So I think that iPads are the new learning necessity for any age, but specifically for ages kindergarten through third grade. I'm going to go through a few reasons that I think the students need iPads in the classroom. Um, Technology is the way to branch out. There are new electronics coming out all the time that help make our world an easier and better place. Kids honestly are just getting bored with having to look at books all the time and just doing worksheets and watching the teacher explain things on whiteboards. It's just boring, and kids are having a hard time staying focused with that kind of stuff. There are thousands, possibly even millions of apps out there that can be used for different educational purposes. That goes from anything from your basic math class all the way through science classes or art projects or just anything that can be educational. Um, and using technology in the classroom instead of using books and paper saves so much on our planet, and it just helps. Not to say that we don't use paper ever, but I think it helps a lot to reduce that use so that we're not wasting it. Students can also take virtual field trips with different websites. So if the school doesn't have the budget to go on a field trip, they can still have the same kind of experience. When it comes to organization, iPads are easier to organize than they are, say, having a trapper or a folder or even just in their desk in general. There are so many times that you find papers torn up or thrown away. So organizing on an iPad is lots easier. And then children can also learn at their own pace with iPads. There are different apps that can be used to help with that too. Um, so we're going to go into a little more detail with these things. So paper is boring. Let's just be honest. Nobody wants to sit around and look at papers all day. iPads are fun and they're exciting, and kids really enjoy using them. The old way of teaching is to use books that go out of date after just a few years of use, and then doing worksheets that waste a ton of paper, and it's killing our forests. We need to save our wildlife and make sure the trees are still standing. Um, and when you do it that way, a lot of times there's not a lot of modification, and so kids have to do things at the same rate. Um, when you use technology, when you use the iPads, um, as I said before, there's a lot of different apps that can be used, and the bright colors that are on the screen make it more entertaining for the kids. They enjoy looking at the screen. It's almost like watching cartoons in the morning, um, like when I was a kid. um, you're saving paper, as I said before, and kids are able to learn things at their own pace, so they don't have to be rushed to get their work done. Um, so there's a lot of different kinds of electronics that kids can use, but I think for the ages K through third, I think iPads are probably the best way to go because it's just a screen that they can have in their hands, and it's touch screen, and they don't have to have the dreaded keyboards that can get dirty and get ruined, and if something is spilled on them, the iPads can have the protective covers that make sure that they don't get ruined. And also, if they get dropped, it's not a big deal if they have those protective covers. And if the teacher doesn't want them to take things home at that age, it can just be stored on a cart and it doesn't take up a lot of space. So it's easy to just have the kids plug them in before they leave for the day, and then they're there on the cart the next morning. The average cost of an iPad starts out at about $329. And then so for 200 students, it would cost roughly 66,000, give or take. And I know that seems like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but you don't have to replace them as frequently. An iPad is going to last you a long time, whereas books and all the supplies that you need for your classroom, books and papers and pencils and even ink, which is super expensive for the printers to make your worksheets and stuff. You're saving on all of that. So that means in the long run, you're actually saving money instead of having to have those things. I know personally, when I buy ink, it costs me $25 a time, like each time I go and purchase it. Well, if you're printing papers for 200 students every single day, and say you have 2 papers per subject, I mean, that's a lot of ink that you're going through. And so you would probably have to replace it every month. So $25 a month, it starts to add up if you really consider even just that. It's kind of a big deal. So you'd save money in the long run there. Some of the apps that can be used, one of them is Duolingo. And I actually really like this app because if a student doesn't speak English and all they know is Spanish, I know that there's going to be a speech specialist or speech therapist that is going to try to help them. But you can use this Duolingo, throughout the day, and it'll help them to learn English a little bit faster, and vice versa. If there's students or even teachers for that matter that don't know how to speak Spanish, but there are Spanish speaking students in the classroom, the students that speak English can learn Spanish as well so that they can learn to communicate with those that can't. So that one, I think that one's really great. And it's not just Spanish either. You can do French and German and whatever. There's a lot of different languages on there actually. So it's a great one. And then there's education.com, which is another one that I enjoy. The students can basically learn just about anything. It goes through your core subjects, I guess I should be more specific. It goes through your core subjects. And so the kids can learn at their own pace and at their own level, because it does, I can't think of the word right now, but it has them go through quizzes so that they can see where they are on their learning level. And so it kind of stays with them. And then there's Hoopla. Hoopla is another great one that is used for reading. So if you don't want to have a whole bunch of books in your classroom, or if the kids struggle with turning in books to the library, this is a really good one because they check out books on the iPad. And so then you don't have to worry about late fees and books getting lost, and kids getting bored. They can check out, I think it's 3 books at a time, and they have, I think it's a month, I'm pretty sure. They have a month to read the book, and then it automatically goes off, but they can recheck it out because it's unlimited. So that's really helpful too. And those are just a couple of apps. There are so many apps out there that help with the education process. So students can also take virtual field trips. As I said before, if a school doesn't have the budget to allow the kids to go on a field trip, say they're studying animals, And so they want to learn about different animals. Some zoos actually have online websites where students can go and look at the animals that are actually there. Some of them have live feeds, and so kids can go and check out what the animals are doing at the time, and they can learn a little extra about them. So that's another really cool thing. You don't, I mean, of course, obviously you want to be able to leave the classroom, but if the budget doesn't allow it, you still have other options available if you have an iPad. Um, and then organization. To me, that's a really big one. I am terrible with organization. Papers get thrown away, books get tore up. Um, things happen. Papers get wet and ruined, books get wet and ruined. On an iPad, you just don't have that issue. And on an iPad, things can get saved to the iCloud. So if your iPad does crash for some reason, you won't lose your stuff because it'll be on your iCloud. And so you'll have it forever because you can use it from any Apple product at all. So you may not want the kids to take their iPads home, but if they have an Apple product at home, they can still pull up their stuff at home too. So it's really helpful overall for organizing. Um, but that's all I have for you. Um, go iPads.